So we are going to start Sri Tattva Sandarbha of Sri Jīva Gosvāmī. And Sandarbhas, as you know, they are the foundation of our Sampradaya. The philosophy and theology of Gaudiya Sampradaya is primarily derived or described in these 6 books which are called Sat Sandarbhas. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself did not write, it's only understood that he wrote the 8 verses of Sikshastakam. But he trained or gave the essence of his teachings to Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, who came to Vrindavan on his order, and they wrote books. And then later on Sri Jīva Gosvāmī, he joined them. So the first book is Brihad Bhagavatamrita of Sri Sanatana Goswami, where basic teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are explained. But systematic explanation, as every school has, what is the pramāṇa and prameya, that Sri Jīva Gosvāmī has given in the Sat Sandarbhas or Bhagavad Sandarbha, which is the original name of the book, is because it is based on Bhagavatam. Although it became popular as Sat Sandarbha, Sat means 6, because there are 6 of them. So, as Jīva Gosvāmī himself writes, that originally this work was started by Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, but it is he who completed it. So what was written by Gopal Bhatta Goswami is not known to us because nothing is available. But on the authority of Sri Jīva Gosvami, we understand that he must have done something. In what shape, or we do not know, which became the basis for these Sandarbhas. As he says that Kranti with Kranta Khanditam, that work which was done by Gopal Bhatta Goswami was not very systematic, complete, and some things were missing. So he has studied that. Punaraitat vivichyate. He deliberated on that, and then he writes these books. So he definitely acknowledges the contribution of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And in Sarva Samvadani he writes that he is not writing anything new, he is taking what is done by Vriddha Vaishnavas like Sri Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Sridhar Swami and so on. But this is, of course, out of his humility he speaks like this. Otherwise, the Sandarbhas is a marvelous work and incomparable, because it is so systematic and everything is explained in such a authentic manner. Whatever Jīva Gosvāmī writes, then he gives proof of that it is not easy to find fault with it, although there are people who can always find fault. Somebody did a PhD and he is just criticizing Jīva Gosvāmī's methodology. So that is not really understanding what he has done. Is very weak arguments basically. Now when you study Nyaya and if you read this book, you will know where are the flaws in his logic. It's not something great, but he got his PhD on that. And then there are some other people who have also criticized like that. But there is no systematic criticism of this work. It's trying to refute what he says, as you can find of other commentaries on Vedanta Sutra which have been refuted by different scholars So there is no such refutation of Sandarbhas, because it's not really possible to do that. The only thing which people attack all the time is that he is just taking it from Bhagavata. That is the major criticism, that he is not based it on a traditional, because traditionally there were commentaries on Vedanta Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads. But actually when you give commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, you can say anything you like to say. Because Yathato Brahma Jigyasa, then you can give your own meaning to Brahman. And Janmadasya Yata, who is that Yata? Is that Yata Durga, or is that Brahma, or is Shiva? It's not really mentioned anywhere. So that's why so many, there is also commentaries, Shakti commentary, there is also Shakta Bhasyas, that Janmadasya Yata refers to Durga. So there is so much possibility of giving interpretation there. But it is Bhagavatam which makes things very clear. And Bhagavatam also begins with Janmadashyata. And this is the last work of Sri Vyasadeva himself. Every other book he wrote for others, right? So, Karma Shreyasi Bhavediva, that let there be beneficial for the people. Then he wrote Mahabharat Kripaya Munina Kirtam. He composed Mahabharat. But Bhagavatam he wrote for himself. Usually when you write book, you write for others. But Vyāsa, who wrote so many things, who divided one Veda into 4, then wrote Vedanta Sutra, then wrote Mahabharata, wrote the Puranas. This Bhagavat he wrote for himself. So if this is giving satisfaction even to such a great person as Vyāsa, there cannot be defect in it. And this is the greatness of Jīva Gosvāmī, that he brings out this brilliant Purāṇa in light. Although Bhagavatam is like sun, it does not need light, but sun can also become covered by clouds.
If anyone has a phone, please put it down. Turn it off. Thank you.
So, the glory of Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, this came into light only after Goswamis wrote on this. All the Bhagavatam was popular before that, and many commentaries were written. But if you see the commentary before that, they were not so clear as what is. Actually, the most of the work which you see after the Goswamis, Vallabhacharya also contributed to the upbringing of Bhagavatam into light. But then many other people have written commentaries taking hints from what Sanatana Goswami wrote, Jīva Gosvāmī wrote. So then many commentaries came after that. Especially on the 10th canto. There are so many people wrote commentary only on the 10th canto. So this Sandarbha therefore is a very brilliant work, and for me it is actually love of my life. When I heard about it, I just wanted to study them, although I did not know where I will study and where will I even find the book. I was in Detroit. So by Krishna's grace, I landed up somehow after a long journey here and there. I landed up in Vrindavan, and I studied this with the great follower of Jīva Gosvāmī. So this is my great fortune, and therefore I took this as my life's mission to translate them and comment on them, so that this knowledge actually comes to known. Because even in our own sampradaya, most people that don't study Bhagavatam, Sandarbhas. They studied Chaitanya Charitamritam, or at most Bhagavatam commentaries if somebody is more scholarly. But what is more popular is Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sandarbhas, now probably it is becoming little well known. Otherwise, most people in our sampradaya, they don't even know the name of the 6 Sandarbhas. If you ask them what are the 6 Sandarbhas, they do not know. Although this is the foundation of our sampradaya. So, Jīva Gosvāmī has done this great work and we are indebted to him eternally, because without his explanation we will really not understand the essence of Bhagavatam. There are great commentaries, and one of very great commentaries, Vallabhacharya's commentary, Subodhini. Although it is not available on the complete book, it is only available up to 3rd canto, few chapters, and then 10th canto and few chapters of 11th canto. He was not able to complete. And his explanations are quite wonderful. But this commentary is the methodology which Jīva Gosvāmī follows is very unique. No one has done this type of explanation. Because what he says is that if we want to understand what is the message of Bhagavatam, first we have to understand what is the heart of its author, Sri Vyāsa. So what was his own experience? What did he realize before he wrote this book? So therefore that is the first thing, as we will read, that is the first thing he analyzes. That what Vyāsa saw in his samādhi, state of samādhi, what was his experience? Was that experience impersonal, experience of impersonal reality or personal reality? So that will be very difficult to refute then once he establishes that. Otherwise you go on giving meaning to the words. But he says that see what Vyāsa experienced. Apashyat purusham purnam mayam cha tadapar. He saw Krishna, complete person, and he saw also Maya, and he also saw the Jīva, Yaya sammohita Jīva. So he saw these 3 things. He saw God himself, he saw his Maya, and he saw the Jīva. So this refutes the Advaitavad that there is only Brahman, and Brahman conditioned by Maya become Jīva. No? He saw them different, distinct from each other. Although they were apashrayam, they took shelter of that Purna Purusha. So then he says that any other explanation which goes against the understanding of Vyāsa should not be accepted, because that is not the meaning of the book. So this is a very straightforward way. There is no need of going into all kinds of logic, avcheda, kavchinnan, and these things. He says just read. So this is very unique style. In case of Vedanta Sutra, of course, you cannot do that, because there is no prologue available to that. What did he do before he wrote the Vedanta Sutra? But in Bhagavatam this is described. So when you take that as the sutra and then you study Bhagavatam, then you understand. And in the very beginning, bhakti is explained. So that then these things become very clear in the samādhi of Vyāsa. And when you take those points and study it, then you can understand very clearly. So after that, then you read the commentaries of other people, then you will see why they have certain problems in their explanations. Because somewhere or the other, it goes against the experience of Vyāsa himself. So that is very brilliant step he takes. He sets the whole thing in motion in a very beautiful manner and irrefutable. And then after that he starts studying what Sukha is saying, what he feels, what is his mood, Sut Goswami. And then he comes to a conclusion. So that's why he calls this Tattva, because in this book he will establish what is the Tattva, who is Supreme Reality, who is God, what is Jiva, what is relationship. In brief, he will establish this. And of course, the biggest job for him is to establish first Bhagavatam as the pramāṇa. Because every philosophy has two parts in it, pramāṇa and prameya. What is the means for knowledge and what is to be known, what is knowable. So therefore this Tattva Sandarbha is divided in two parts. The first part is pramāṇa shastra and the second is prameya. There are 63 anuchedas. So up to I think 29th he talks about the pramāṇa and rest is prameya. And then on that he expands in the other 5 books. So this is the great work. But I feel that we should have one more book, somebody should write. Because every sampradaya, authentic sampradaya, Sri Sampradaya, Madhva Sampradaya, they all have their tattvas very clearly delineated. So what is time? In our philosophy, what is time? What is space? What is our Khyativad? So these are very important parts of Indian schools of philosophy. Every philosopher will have written down on these things. What are the padarthas which we accept? It's like in Nyaya there are 7 padarthas. So what are our padarthas? Of course, we have only, it is Advaya Gyan, one padartha, but then how does it manifest? So then we have 3 divisions of that. And then in Maya, what are our padarthas? Do we accept time as separate from space or it is one with space? Because there are different schools. Some accept time as separate as Nyaya, but if you go to yoga, time is not a separate category. Then abhava, is abhava a separate padartha or not? So these things which are deliberated in other schools, we don't have a separate description of this. So it will be good that from Sandarbhas you can derive all that. That on the after study of Sandarbhas, such a book should be written down. What is an illusion in our philosophy? What really happens when you see a snake in a rope? So Advaitavad has its explanation, Nyaya has its own explanation, Mimamsa has its explanation, Ramanujacharya has his own explanation, Madhvacharya has, Nimbarkacharya has. So what is Gaudiya's explanation? So we should have. Because you see Vedanta is already an established school and there are 2 divisions of that, Advait Vedanta and non-Advait Vedanta. So they all have a system and they all describe these things. So we have not done that because we did not have taken that route. Our route was different. All the commentary on Vedanta Sutra were brought in later on by Baldev Vidya Bhushan because of some problem which arose, but it was not the primary need. So these questions were not brought up. So even Pramāṇa Shastra, Jīva Gosvāmī, although he mentions, but he doesn't go into the detail. What is Prataksha for us? And what is Anumana? Or how many Pramāṇas do we accept? Do we accept Upamana as separate? In Sarva Samvadani, of course, he gives little more detail. In Tattva Sandarbha, he doesn't say much. He has given a little more deliberation in Sarva Samvadini. So it will be good to have an independent book about these things. What is God for us? So when you study, then many of these questions may be answered, and if you are attentive, you may notice that. Because there will be discussion of time, there will be discussion of Maya, there will be discussion for that. But since you are in a different flow, you may not notice that. So let's begin. So he first starts with his Mangalacharana. So Mangalacharana is the standard way of beginning a book. Mangala means auspiciousness, or that which destroys inauspiciousness. So there is a dhatu called magi, meaning is gati artha. So there are, if you study Nyaya, then the first part in Tattva Chintamani and all the books of Navya Nyaya based on that is called Mangalvada. Or why do we do Mangalacharan? What is the need for doing this Mangalacharan? Why waste time for this? Because when they are writing book, they are trying to be very brief. They don't want to have extra statements, so why have Mangalacharan? So they're just saying that although there is no such Shruti statement or Vedic statement, but they assume that there must have been that samapti kamo mangalam acharet. Sometimes there are, because we know that lot of Veda is not available, so there is a sutra in Jaminese Purumyamansa Sutras which says asati hi anumanam. So even Jaminese time, it seems everything was not available. So he says that when the Shruti is not available, but you find the behavior of saintly people following something like that, then you have to make an anumana that there must have been a Shruti, means a Vedic statement to that effect. So even in the Yagyas, many times they don't find the Vedic statement, then they assume it on the authority of some other statements. So similarly, it is assumed that there must have been a statement like this, samapti kamo mangalam acharet, just like swara kamo johiyat, that one who is desiring heaven should do yagya. So therefore Mangalacharan is a tradition in the Vedic authors, all Vedic writers, doesn't matter what is the subject, they do Mangalacharan except Sankaracharya. You don't find Mangalacharan by him, otherwise everybody does it. So one reason which is given is that, and the maximum analysis of Mangalacharan is done in Nyaya, as I said. So they give basically two reasons. One is that Vighna Vinasaya, that to destroy the obstacle. That if you do any work, then there is always some obstacle which comes in that. Any auspicious work, there is some obstacle which appears. So Shreyansi Bahu Vignani. saying in Sanskrit, whenever you do some shreyas, some good work which will give ultimate welfare, then bahu vignani, many obstacles come to that. So to avoid, to counteract, it is Mangalacharan is an antidote for the vigna. So that is the primary reason that Mangalacharan is done. Then of course in Nyaya they raise objection, that two objections are raised. Number one, there are some people who have not done Mangalacharan and their books were completed. So therefore Mangalacharan is not necessary, because this is a vyabhichar. If you have a hetu, then there should be no vyabhichar, deviation in that. Means if Mangalacharan is compulsory to complete the work, then the simple thing is that if there is no Mangalacharan, work should not be completed. So we see both types of examples. People have not done Mangalacharan, like Buddhist people. They also write books. They don't do Mangalacharan, and the book is completed. And then there are people, Vedikas, they have done Mangalacharan, and the book was not completed. Like Bhatta, he was writing Kadambari. He did a big Mangalacharan, 20 slokas, but he died before the book was complete. So of course Nayayikas have now to answer this. So they say, well, those people who are not doing Mangalacharan in writing, they must be doing in the mind. Even if they are Buddhist, they must be thinking of Buddha, praying to him. Or if they are followers of Jaina, they must pray to their Tirthankara. So it is not necessary that if it is written, then only it is a proof that Mangalacharan is done. And the second, it says, well, if he has not done in this life, maybe he did it in the previous life. So they want to prove their point, they don't want to give up. So now what about the other person that who has done Mangalacharan and the book is not complete? So he says, well, in his case the Mangalacharan was weak and the offense was too strong. Just like sometimes you get disease and if the disease is by your own mistake in this life, you can counteract it by medicine. But if it is coming because of some heavy past karma, then medicine is not going to have effect, because that karma is going to overtake the effect of the medicine. So he says that this person has heavy vigna, offense, obstacle, and Mangalacharan was not able to counteract that. So therefore Mangalacharan is still necessary. And why then you have to write it in the book? Says this is to teach to the students so that they can also follow the parampara. Otherwise they think that Guruji did not do Mangalacharan, we don't need to do it. So therefore they do it explicitly. So Jīva Gosvāmī also does it here. This is the first verse. And usually Mangalacharan, when they do, they write their own verse. But Jīva Gosvāmī, interestingly, does not compose his own verse, at least the first one. Later on he composes. He takes it directly from Bhagavatam. So that is very significant, that he uses a verse of Bhagavatam for Mangalacharana, or at least the opening of the Mangalacharana, opening verse of the book. And this is to show that he has reverence for Bhagavatam, and also he wanted to show his respect to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it is also interesting that although this sampradaya is founded by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but the Goswamis themselves don't say much about him. except Prabodhananda Saraswati, he wrote Chaitanya Chandroda Natkam, but Jīva Gosvāmī, Rupa Gosvāmī, they wrote so much about Krishna. Sanatana Goswami. What is that? Yeah. No, I'm talking about Vrindavan Goswamis. There's a lot written in Bengal about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In fact, they call it as Gaur Pramāṇyavad. That Chaitanya is the pramāṇa. But they have not done that. They mention Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only in their Manglacharan, but inside the book there is no mention. Okay, 2-3 places Jīva Gosvāmī mentions when he cites a verse. I think he cites 2 verses by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu throughout the Sandarbhas. So then he says, Iti Uktam Kalyug Pavan Avtaran. That's all. Otherwise, in the whole Sandarbhas, he does not say anything about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is, of course, the reason is that they wanted to show this sampradaya, not something as a pantha. In India, there are 2 types of societies or groups, religious groups. One is called parampara, other is called pantha. So pantha is that which is established around a person. Like we have Nanak Pantha, followers of Guru Nanak, we have Kabir Pantha, Dadu Pantha. So their schools are centered around the founder of that school, basically. Whoever that may be, whether it is Nanak or Kabir or Dadu or Meera or so many others. So their words, their teachings, their lifestyle, that is the authority. So like you have hadith or hadith and the writing. So whatever Kabir wrote and then Kabir's life, that becomes pramāṇa for the Kabir Panthis. And then there is no need that whether it is having any pramāṇa in Shastra, it is authenticated by scriptures or not. It is not necessary for that. So that is what is called pantha. It is called Sant Mat. That it is the opinion of a saintly person and this is authoritative. And then we have paramparas, where everything is based on Shastra. So whether it is Advait or Vaishnava or Kashmir Shaivism or... So they are basing their school on some basic scriptures. They also have their saintly people, authorities, behavior of people, sadhu, shastra. Sadhu is also there, but shastra is the basis. So, keeping that in mind, therefore, Goswamis, they did not give much attention to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and then just saying because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says it. They wanted to show the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the Shastra. That it is coming from Shastra, what he is saying. So that's how we understand that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually revealed to us the message, the secret or the highest message of Bhāgavata Purāṇa. So we also don't say that it is just Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who said it. And this is the greatness of Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is considered as very authoritative for us, that although it is saying there that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says this and that is taken as pramāṇa, but actually what he is saying is coming from Sandarbhas. Because Chaitanya Charitamrita was written after Sandarbhas were written, after Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Ujjwal Nilmani, all these books were already written. And what he does is that he takes all the teachings from here and he puts it in the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Otherwise, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is going to South India, he is not speaking in Bengali there. because who is going to understand it? So it is authentic because what is being said there is actually the message of the Shastra. So this is very interesting thing. This is a very curious thing. That important thing, what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying is important because it is Shastra which is saying it. So it is Shastra which is being spoken through him. So when you see the dialogue, Chaitanya speaking with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking with Ramananda Roy, now we are saying that they had a dialogue, but who was there actually to record it? It is the greatness of Krishnadas Kaviraj that he puts it in that manner. And by putting it in that manner, he is actually bringing out the message of the Goswami literature. So if one studies Chaitanya Charitamritam, then by studying the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one naturally understands the teachings of the Goswamis, because it is actually have been strung through his life. His life has been explained in that manner. There was one incident I was reading which is interesting to mention, that there was a Buddhist monk and he was talking to another Buddhist scholar, and during the dialogue this Buddhist monk, he said, well, Buddha said like this. So Buddhist scholar said, but I have never read it anywhere. He said, I have read all the books, Tripitaka and all these things, but I have never read anywhere that Buddha said like this. So the monk said, well, if he has not said, he should have said it. So this is interesting, that if he has not said it, he should have said it. So the message is that it is not important what was said or what was not said, but the book is there to tell you that this is what he should have said. Otherwise, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, so he was not having all these slokas. When Arjuna is in dejection, he is not saying Sishyasteham Swadhitam Mam Prapannam Karpanya Dosa Upat Svabhava Prichhami Tvam Dharma Sammudha Cheta Sishyasteham Shadhimam Tvam Prapannam. So he was not making a sloka, he was having a normal dialogue. So it is Vyāsa who composes this. So it is not that Bhagavad Gita was not spoken by Krishna. And also we don't take it now that these are words of Vyāsa. We actually take it as word of Krishna. But actually these are not really exact word Krishna spoke to Arjuna. It is Vyāsa who composes it. There may have been a small dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, and Arjuna may have felt and Krishna would have spoken, but then it is Vyasa's intellect. Namaste Vyāsa Vishala Buddhe. So it is Vyāsa, the Vishala Buddhi of the Vyāsa, who gives us Bhagavad Gita. And it is as authentic as if Krishna speaks it, because it is he himself is an avatar, Krishna. So then he speaks, and Krishna himself acknowledges in Bhagavatam 11th canto to Uddhava that I spoke this to Arjuna in the battlefield. He says this Ranamurdhani. So it was spoken definitely, but what exactly was spoken and how long it was spoken, because when both the armies are there, you cannot have such a big dialogue there. Everybody will get impatient, In the meantime, Bhishma and Dronacharya, I'm sure they will walk to them, and say, what the heck you are doing here, Get off, Don't waste our time. So therefore Shastra is actually dependent on the authority of the person who is giving. So Krishnavas Kaviraj is an authority, and therefore his book is authoritative, and because he also bases it on the authority of the previous acharyas. Otherwise there is a dialogue happening and then verses being quoted from Vidagdha Madhav or something which was not even written by that time. It was written later on, but verse is already being quoted somewhere. So how is that possible? So anyway, the point here is that Jīva Gosvāmī, he takes the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam and begins Tattva Sandarbha as Mangalacharan. And today we'll stop here and we'll start tomorrow. If there is any question. Yes.
I have 3 questions, hopefully at least I can get 2. First question is, you mentioned a really beautiful point about that each school's responsibility is to basically first establish what is their pramāṇa and the other is their prameya. And I was just reflecting on conversations I've had of late and in the past, and what we've been studying in the Yoga Sutras. And it seems like basically we can see that difference between, with like the Yoga Sutras, it seems like they accept the scriptures, but their main thing is the experience of the person. And I notice that a lot of people who practice yoga, they take their personal experience as almost like their ultimate pramāṇa. This feels right to me, therefore it must be right. And it seems like here it's almost like, is it correct to say that here it's saying that we may have a personal experience, but above that should be the Shastra, because we don't know if our experience is deceiving us, we have limited experience. Would that be a correct distinction between maybe this emphasis on Shastra versus maybe another emphasis on personal experience?
Yeah, so this, as when we come to the later on pramāṇa Shastra, Jīva Gosvāmī will say this, that when it comes to the absolute reality, then the only pramāṇa is Shabda. And of course by that it does not mean that we are not talking about the experience, because that Shabda is also based on experience of somebody. Because Vyāsa also had an experience and then he wrote it. So that is called Vedushya Prataksha. That Prataksha or experience, perception of a person who is free from conditioning. So this is all about experience only. But the distinction is that when someone has experience, then it is not sure whether the guy is actually having experience or hallucinating, because he may be under the influence of the Trigunas. And when Vyāsa is experiencing, then he is actually experiencing beyond the Trigunas. So that is the difference between normal experience and Vedushya experience. So although we say Shabda is the authority, but actually Shabda is also Prataksha. Ultimately it is Prataksha which is the authority.
Second question, I really like that distinction you made between Panta and Parampara. And I was wondering if even in a Parampara, it seems like sometimes followers of a guru almost give more emphasis. Obviously we need to emphasize the spiritual master, but it's almost like they don't give as much emphasis to the Shastra as they do kind of their personal spiritual master. And I was almost thinking, while you're speaking, it's almost like we're turning a parampara into a panta in that sense. Is that a risk that can happen?
Yeah, that happens quite often. And that is because of the human nature. So human nature has this, which is, we can have this in our own life, that when you are with some person, and that person is very illustrious, then you are obviously in awe and reverence of that person and that personality, then you cannot think that there can be something wrong with this person, or he can do some things which are beyond him, or what he says can be, against Shastra. So that happens sometimes. So it is actually it is up to the person himself, that illustrious person, to not create this kind of possibility. So at least I can cite the example of my own Guru Maharaj. He was very careful about this. Even while teaching to us, he was very, very careful about this. He will say that don't think that I am beyond Shastra. Very clearly he says, I am nothing. He says it is Shastra which is authority, not me. And if I am authority, it is because I am speaking Shastra. And this does not mean that he does not have an experience, because that is another mistake people think, that Shastra is so restrictive that you cannot have any creativity and you cannot have an experience. You have to just follow the dictate. No, that experience part is there, but that does not mean that Shastra is forsaken. So that's why Krishna says that tasmat shastram pramāṇam te karya karya vyavastito gyatva shastra vidhanoktam karya kartum iharahasa. So even the great personalities, they do not have the need for Shastra, but still they don't give it up. So one of the reasons Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Nityananda Prabhu not to come was that Nityananda Prabhu's behavior was avadhut. He was avadhut. Avadhuta means nirgrantha, that he is beyond Shastra. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not want that. It is not that there is something wrong with Nityananda Prabhu. He is God himself, he can do anything. He is Svayam Bhagavān, and whatever he does is great. But that is not great for common people. They can have misunderstanding, especially if you want to start a school, then you cannot make that as an ideal. So he did not want that. Therefore he himself was very idealistic in his behavior, and he did not want the followers to get confused by any behavior which is not within the purview of Shastra. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was very cautious about it. Although on one side looks like as if he was always in some Mahabhav state, but actually he was very, very aware of what he wanted to do and what he was doing. In this regard, he was 100% alert. And that's why he told these people to come to Vrindavan. Because if he did not send them to Vrindavan, then we will not have this sampradaya. It will again become a pantha.
Following up on this,
Following up on this point, it seems then, if a charismatic personality comes about, that as long as the teachings and the lineage that comes from that person is rooted in Shastra, that it would count as parampara, even if that person is not necessarily coming from a strict lineage. Is that correct? Because I haven't heard this before from you, Babaji, so this is very helpful. When we think of these charismatic traditions that are emerging, if these charismatic saintly personalities, if their teachings are rooted in Shastra, then it would be considered parampara and not santma.
Yes. If, of course, that is a very big if. So main thing is that this is the characteristic of parampara, that it is based in Shastra. So that's why even Yoga Sutra starts Atha Yoga Anusasanam. that I'm giving you anushasana. He's not saying that just coming from my head. Even he is acknowledging some parampara.
So the second question, also piggybacking on Atma Prasad, is it seems here within the Gaudiya tradition that there's also a predominance put on the experience of the sages, in this case Vyāsa, above even the Shruti. And of course Jīva Gosvāmī is saying that, well, the Itihasa and the Purāṇa should also count as Veda and on equal level with those things. But it seems what's really being said is that it's superior. And so we're placing the experience of Vyāsa in particular above the Shruti. Is that accurate?
It is not accurate because Jīva Gosvāmī is not saying that it is above the Shruti. He is making a point that, look, I want to know what is absolute reality. Okay? So I accept Shruti is very authoritative. But Shruti is not helping me to know what is reality. So then I take recourse to the Puranas, which are also part of the Shruti. They are also called fifth Veda, because there reality is explained more clearly. So in that sense, he is not saying that this is superior or inferior, but he says Shruti is not completely available. That's what he says. That a lot of it has been lost, and then there is no parampara of the explanation of it. Because whatever is parampara of the Shruti is only of karma kanda. But the Gyan part, there is no parampara, the upasana. So he says, therefore I am taking recourse to this. So in that sense it is superior, not in the sense of authority. Not that Shruti is less authoritative than Purana, but it is superior in the sense that it is more easily comprehensible in respect to the Tattva, in that regard.
And is this idea of the fifth Veda, is this Jīva Gosvāmī's idea, or is this something that he's drawing on from previous somewhere?
No, it is mentioned there. Itihas Purāṇanam Panchamam Veda Uchyate. And even in the Shruti there is a statement. So he will quote from Shastra about this. So Itihas Purāṇa, they are meant to actually supplement or support the Vedas. So Itihas Purāṇabhyam samubriyet, that one should try to understand the Vedas with the help of Itihas Purāṇa. In fact, he says the Veda becomes scared when he sees a person trying to study itself who does not know the Itihas Purāṇa. Iti mam praharishyati, that this guy is going to kill me now. Because it is a fact, if you want to know the Shruti properly, you better have knowledge of Itihas and Purāṇa.
And last question before I pass this off. Wouldn't the Upanishads count though as Jnana Shruti that we have that would be different than Karma Kanda?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's what he says, that about that there is no parampara, the explanation of it.
Given what you said about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was such a stickler for the rules so that people didn't follow him, why did he reveal his nature as Radha Krishna and thereby, in a sense, there's such weak support in the Shastra itself for Chaitanya as an incarnation of Krishna? We have a verse or two, we have Prahlad Maharaj talking about the tree yuga and he's hidden in the fourth. There's a couple of verses, but essentially, from an objective point of view, it's a very weak case that can be made for Chaitanya's divinity. So given that, by manifesting his divinity as a hidden incarnation, has he not opened the door for any Tom, Dick and Harry to then claim, and without mentioning any names, there's plenty of examples, that later people, charismatics, can then claim, or their followers can claim, that this person is a hidden incarnation or an incarnation of Krishna. So in a sense, hasn't that created a massive problem? You've opened a Pandora's box, essentially.
Well, really speaking, he has not opened any Pandora box. That box is already open. In India, even if you would have not done it, there are many people who claim avatars. Even now, there are maybe 2-3 Kalki avatars living in India. So that is not, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not say that. So this is a land of avatars, and therefore people are, there is always, as Bhagavatam says, that dharmasya hi apvargasya nartha arthaya upkalpate. Sut Goswami says that dharma is not meant for making money. So why is he saying that there must be people who are doing that? Why? Because you cannot deny something, right? Nyaya says you cannot deny something if it does not exist. So if Sut Goswami is denying dharmasya hi apvargasya nartha arthaya upkalpate, that dharma is not meant to earn wealth, that means there must have been some people even at that time who were doing that, although maybe very few. So he did this, and you can say that this has given possibility to others to do that. Yes, you can say that, but I would say that even if you would not have done that, people will still do that.
Can I just ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
Then if Chaitanya is a hidden incarnation, why didn't he hide it?
Well, that's
What
why.
is the meaning of a hidden incarnation if then you reveal your Swarup, your
Because-
Puja Swarupa? Now everybody knows, and Krishna Das Kaviraj records it, and then the whole world is worshipping Gornitai. So what is the meaning of a hidden incarnation at that point?
It was hidden till the time he came. Then it has to be revealed. Means it was not known, and even now also, as you say, many people don't accept that being objective. It is a very weak pramāṇa just because he revealed. So it's still hidden in some sense.
Even when he revealed his form of Radha Krishna to Ramananda Rai, and Ramananda fainted. Then when Ramananda Rai came back into external consciousness, he told him, "Don't tell anyone because they'll make jokes about it." He said, "Loka parihas." So even when Mahaprabhu was here and he revealed, he did it privately, and he said, "Don't tell anyone else about it," in his own life. Of course, in the next generation, Raghunath Das Goswami told to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, then he wrote about it. But at the time, he was very discreet.
Yeah, it was discreet, but I think even if he would not have revealed, people would have still propagated him as an avatar.
But, could one say that Krishnadas Kaviraj, obviously we're devotees, we don't like to talk like this, but from an objective point of view, he's not respecting Mahaprabhu's wishes by writing what he did. Could one say something like that?
No, but already so many biographies were already written. Even associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were writing Kadcha about him. Murari Gupta.
But is it true that some of those early biographies do not mention his divinity, accept him more as a charismatic, a great bhakta?
No, but if you read Chaitanya Bhagavata,
No, not that, but other ones that are less well known.
which one?
S.K. Day makes this case.
Which
in
one?
the history of Bengal Vaishnavism. He said that there were early hagiographies that did not mention Chaitanya's divinity.
I don't know which one he's referring to. I cannot, unless I know. But if you read Chaitanya Mangal or Chaitanya Bhagavat or any of these things, they say very clearly that he is Krishna. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna nahi anya. It's a very popular statement.
At the beginning you mentioned the Dhatu from Mangalacharya. Can you just repeat it again, please?
What about Mangalacharya? Magi. Magi and alach pratyay is applied on it. On Magi dhatu, alach pratyay is applied, then you get Mangal.
just coming back to this conversation on the relationship between Shastra Pramāṇam and personal experience. You co-authored an essay about this that I have, When Stones Float and Mud Speaks, I think that was the name of it. Anyway, in that you articulate very clearly the relationship between Vyāsa's authority as an apta, but also the supremacy of scriptures. Share that for everyone.
Yes.
Babaji, I think you mentioned there are two main purposes for Mangalacharana. One was to complete the book, and
And then is to destroy the obstacles.